You talked about some exercising, maybe some new local news demons. You know who's been exercising demons? Who? Penny Hardaway and those Memphis Tigers.
What a difference a year makes.
What a difference a year makes. Let's get into the big idea. Memphis Tigers are your AAC tournament champions. They leave no doubt they belong in the NCAA tournament by beating UAB 84-72. PJ Haggerty named the most outstanding player in the tournament. Haggerty, Danger, and Musa Cisse named all-tournament team, and Memphis claims their second tournament title in 3 years. Shout out to one Penny Hardaway.
Through the storm, there was a huge storm last year. You know, losing this game, the first round at the tournament, my mother having throat cancer and just really just going through it. To be here now, happy, winning the regular season and the conference championship, man, I feel blessed and grateful for this situation.
Memphis, much to the surprise of a lot of folks, but to the delight of Memphians, a 5 seed. They will get Colorado State, the winners of the Mountain West. Ole Miss also in the dance. They're a 6 seed in the South region. They'll get the winner of those frauds out in Chapel Hill, UNC, and, of course, San Diego State, whoever wins that game. And then Tennessee is a 2 seed in the Midwest. They've got Wofford in the first round. The Memphis Tigers right here react to their 5 seed placement. A whole lot of people thought Memphis would land somewhere between 6 and 8, but instead they get Colorado State in the 5-12 matchup. Penny Hardaway said he was surprised, but for once in his tenure as a Memphis Tigers head coach, feels like he's getting some respect in the building.
Yeah, a part of me, I would say yes because of the talk that happened. But at the end of the day, if they're going to go by resumes, we have one of the best resumes in the country. And it's hard to win games on this level. And when you win games, whether it's non-conference or whether it's in the AAC, it's tough. And I'm just thankful for them respecting that.
It was a good feeling. Just with all the talk about the seeds these past couple weeks, it was just a good feeling for us and the team to know that we in a good spot for the tournament.
A 5 seed in the NCAA tournament heading to the West region in Seattle, Washington, where actually you will be by coincidence.
Yes.
Is it a coincidence? I feel like you may be a little clairvoyant there.
But this is the second time it's happened, so maybe it's not. When the Tigers went to Portland, it's the luck of the Irish, my Irish ancestry. But I did this exact same thing. My family's out in the Pacific Northwest. My mom lives there, and a couple years back, we were going to go to the first and second round games in Portland, Oregon. My mom and I and a couple of her friends, and stay at a friend's house in Portland. Memphis gets sent to Portland. All right, bada boom, bada bang. This time around, I was like, there is no way that the Tigers get sent. And as I'm watching the selection show, my mom was holding out hope. And I was like, stop. Just stop. There's no way that Memphis is going to play there.
Fine, yeah.
And I was already booked.
You were already going.
I was already booked.
Right.
Booked it like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Decided I was just going to go out, get to see some of the first and second round action, see my mom, spend some time at home. And when it comes to the last reveal, in my head, it's, this is Florida's side of the bracket. What if they're the 8-9 game? What if your prize of winning one is having to play the team with the most energy behind it going into the second round? And instead the Tigers are rewarded with a 5 seed, which is remarkable. Like the way that this season has gone, obviously future goals are to be had. The second week of the tournament was always kind of that next step for this group. But you cannot deny that winning the AAC regular season, winning the AAC championship game, and then ultimately getting a 5 seed in the tournament, like that's a pretty good place to start from.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. What Penny Hardaway's been able to do this year, you talk about exercising demons, he really did this because we saw what happened in January. You had that 4-game skid, and there's a lot of disappointment there. There's a lot of criticism of Penny, like maybe he's not the guy. He talked about, well, you know, I've always wanted to be that guy, but I've never doubted myself, but maybe there's a moment where you got to bring somebody else in. Yeah. And Penny comes in this year much more humbled and hits all the right buttons. You bring Dane Danger into that starting lineup there in January, February. He starts playing amazing. Musa Cisse fits right in there in that backup big spot, blocking a block and a half a game. PJ Haggerty is like the coverall, right? Like he forgives all sins whenever the Tigers have a tough game. And for them to come into the AAC tournament and having to beat a Wichita State team that always plays them super tough, some of the absolute worst officiating we have ever seen in college basketball, felt like. You get through that game, you take care of the next round, you get into that matchup with UAB, and you got to beat a team for a third time, which we talk about all the time is so hard to do. You do that in convincing fashion, I would say. And then you come back, you get that 5 seed, and I think everybody was kind of holding their breath as a Memphis Tigers fan because you're thinking, best case scenario, we're probably getting a 6, right? And you're like, okay, I can live with a 6. You know, you get that 6-13 matchup, but you're thinking it's probably still going to be an 8 seed.
Or you bargain with, okay, great, a 7.
The basketball guys,
right?
right?
And like you said, like a best case scenario being a 6, and then for that to be exceeded just feels like a real testament to the committee looking at the Tigers' resume, and it all goes back to that non-conference schedule that Penny Hardaway put together. And when you go all in understanding that the conference that you are currently playing in is not built in a way that you're able to help yourself as the season progresses, you have to make that statement early. And it starts with, I know UConn falls off throughout the year. They're still a tournament team. You get that big win over UConn, the defending champs. That carries over into the momentum on the Michigan State side of things. You play Auburn in a tight, close game, and then you get a win over Clemson, and so on and so forth. And to be able to put back the importance of that part of the schedule, coupled with it's really hard to win every game you're supposed to win. That's just a ridiculously difficult thing to ask of a team, and for Memphis to almost do it perfectly. You get 2 losses, but both are on the road, so consistently you take care of home court. You get those wins over the FAUs, the UABs, and then all of that culminating with a 3rd win over UAB. And like you said, it wasn't really in doubt in that championship game, despite being down.
No, it was
Tyrese
a doubt
Hunter.
for a moment. It was
a doubt for a moment. But again, that's a testament to Penny Hardaway as a coach. That's your AAC Coach of the Year, because what are you going to do when you're down Tyrese Hunter, when you're down Dante Harris? You got to reach in deep, and to have a Koji in a position where he was ready to take on those minutes and not be someone who loses you a game, or as a team that lets go of a rope and understands that, well, we're going to make the tournament anyway. And Penny talked about it after the game. Like, he's not built to approach a game and do anything but try to win that game, and you saw that on full display.
Yeah, you've got to get that to translate to your team, and I think they really had that will to win there, especially towards the end. You get into that 5-6 minute range, and where they just kind of take off. You get into the fast break so many times. PJ Haggerty, man, you watch him play ball, and he doesn't say a whole lot, but you can just kind of tell he's got that look in his eye like, I'm here to kill you. And he does it so well. Dame Danger's kind of been the same way. To your point about Baraka Okogie, I think that was such a great point, because he really didn't do anything that he doesn't normally do. Is he a little erratic on the offensive side of the ball? Yes, but he was able to run your offense in such a way that, you know, Dame Danger and PJ Haggerty could really get you to the finish line. And we was like, hey, man, just don't turn the ball over.
Right.
Keep playing great defense, and we'll do what we do, and they get through. They get to the win. To the point about Tyrese Hunter, we're going to have to see what happens in this NCAA tournament. They're talking about him coaching from the bench and how important that kind of was for them, and his ability to lead despite not being on the floor. But when you get into this NCAA tournament, man, it's going to be rough. Go ahead and bring up this full screen. Here's the West region that we've got. Florida is going to be your 1 seed there at the top of the bracket there. Memphis, the 5 seed. And the beauty of the 5 seed, and we'll talk about this, Jessica, is that they're going to face the winner of Grand Canyon and Maryland. And Maryland's been playing really well this season. Grand Canyon, of course, as well. You got to play well to get into the tournament. But you get to duck the 1 seed. And that was the thing that was, like, terrifying so many Memphians, because we've known what Memphis has done the past couple of years. You go to the 8 seed in 2023, you lose to FAU in heartbreaking fashion. You think you probably deserve to win that game. Just doesn't go your way. Whatever. 9 seed 2022, you beat Boise State, and then you lose to the 1 seed in Gonzaga. And then looking at even at the 2023 year, you almost got a gift, because if you would have won that game,
and you look at what happened.
Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue, and you're like, oh, what could have been? So when you look at this bracket, what really comes to mind for you?
Well, we always think of the 5-12 game as
a
bit of a trap.
Yeah.
And especially given the fact that Memphis is an underdog going into this game. I will counter that with this team, this city in its entirety thrives on underdog culture. Yeah. So I think there can be something. There's so much vibes that goes into March Madness, and that is something that you can rest upon. But this Colorado State team is a legitimate opponent. There's a reason why analytics will tell you that they are supposed to win this game, while Las Vegas is telling you that they are supposed to win this game. They win a Mountain West Conference that was probably disrespected from the grand scheme of things.
And won it easy.
And won it in a deciding fashion of their own. So it's a tough first matchup, but like you said, it's really about that next game and having the opportunity to take on the winner of the Maryland Grand Canyon game. Maybe you get some funkiness there. And then, as long as you get to that second weekend, then you get a crack at what some are prognosticating as like the hot pick. They're not the projected pick. I think Duke has the best odds to win right now. Obviously, Auburn coming off a bit of a difficult stretch, if you can call any stretch of their season difficult. But yes, they lose a couple and ultimately fall short in the SEC tournament too. But this Florida team's really good. And so you're able to stack. But you really do have to take it, as stupid as it sounds and cliche as it sounds, one game at a time, because that is the nature of the tournament. And with the Tigers, it could be one game at a time injury-wise, too. You just don't know where guys are going to be able to come back at any given time.
Yeah, haven't given us the full prognostication or diagnosis, whatever it is with Tyrese Hunter, but we know it is his foot.
You see a boot.
You see a boot, and a boot does not bode well when you got to play a game in a week and you're hoping, they get some of that Bengay or whatever it is, rub it on there, and, you're hoping he's able to play for you because he's such a calming force for that offense. 13 or 14 points a game, their third leading scorer. But he's a great leader in the way that maybe PJ is not. PJ is going to go get you a bucket. Tyrese is going to, lay the land out. This is what we got to do. He's a steadier.
When you look at great performances in the NCAA tournament, or great teams, I should say, having what Tyrese Hunter, if he is available, brings to you, but if he's not, what that takes away from this team is important. But I do think the other piece of that is having someone like a PJ Haggerty and having someone like a Dane Danger. Those are potential stars. Those are March stars. Both of those players are the kind of player that you can foresee a road where they are amongst the most talked about players coming out of the first and second round games.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Talking about Colorado State, 13 NCAA appearances, 2022, 2024, 2025, their most recent ones. They've got a really good ball player in Nick Clifford, 19 points, 9 boards a game. Jalen Lake, their guard, 11 points and 2.8 rebounds. They're kind of similar to Memphis in that their net ranking in KenPom maybe doesn't give you the exact idea of what they look like. But I think if you're a Memphis Tigers fan, you're like, man, screw all the analytics. Can they hoop or can they not hoop? And I would say that Colorado State can hoop. So we'll see what can happen. If you had to pull somebody to come out of this West region, who comes out for you?
I really like this St. John's team. It's hard for me to pick against Florida.
I'm right there with you.
But I do look at the 14 teams getting out of the SEC, and it was one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen by an individual conference. But there was a lot of politicking, appropriate politicking, that went into play of getting that respect where you end up getting 14 teams. That blows the previous record of 11 from the Big East back in 2011. And granted, UConn won it that year. So it was a team from the Big East that ultimately wins when they have that many representatives. But Rick Pitino is one of the greatest coaches that we have ever seen, and he is reminding everybody quickly just how good he is. And coming from what he did at Iona to now being able to be in that spot in St. John's, I would look at that as a toss-up. If you're getting a Florida St. John's game, that's a whole lot of fun for an Elite Eight with a spot in the Final Four on the line.
The NCAA tournament always comes down to coaching.
It's a big part of it.
It's a big. I mean, your stars are going to be stars. You need your Cinderella teams and your Cinderella players, but ultimately, in a game-by-game situation, you want guys from a head coaching perspective who've been there, who know how to get their team prepared in a 24-hour stretch. And I think when you look at a Rick Pitino, that's what he's made for this moment, where he's like, all right, I got to get my guys ready in the next 24 hours. We got this team. This is what they do well. Here's what we draw up, and then ultimately, go be tough.
Yeah.
And we've seen Rick Pitino confront his team a couple of times this year, and it's just y'all not tough enough for me. I need y'all to get where I'm at. And I think we'll see. I could definitely see a Florida St. John's Elite Eight scenario going on. I think that's really fun. Let's look at the broader bracket. You guys, y'all don't have to bring up any graphics or nothing for this one, but I said fraud UNC. They'll play. San Diego State. Ole Miss will get the winner of those two matchups. What do you think about that whole UNC situation? As a daughter of somebody whose your dad was on the selection committee at one point?
He was, and he was reminding me of a time, because obviously a lot of attention has gone on Bubba Cunningham being the chairman of the selection committee, and they were quick to point out that when somebody's team is being discussed, a la Bubba Cunningham as the athletic director at UNC, he has to leave the room during those discussions. But we're all humans. We're all people.
Leaves the room, yeah.
The conversations can continue outside of that, and also, just influence and where people stand. But I would actually take that influence outside of him and put it more in the realm of the brand of North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are making an argument
It's a TV show.
for one of those last teams in, North Carolina gets a blue blood bump. And fair or not fair, but you can make an excuse for it. And sure, West Virginia fans out there today have an absolute accurate case that they had a greater resume. They did not go 1-12 against quad one opponents, and they will be the first to tell you that. But between them, I was really pulling for Boise State to get a spot in the tournament. Obviously, they lose to Colorado State in that game, but they were a fun team to watch too. But North Carolina gets to rest on the brand. And what you want to know who I'm happy for, though? The kid with the lane violation, because at least his career doesn't end with that. And that was a really tough way for a game to end. Granted, you're going to have that. Maybe you deserved for your season to end in that situation. Not him individually, but team-wise, after they had come back, I think they were down 24, and Duke playing without Cooper Flagg. But ultimately, they'll still roll. And now you see, again, can the brand carry you through the tournament a little bit? Can that experience of Hubert Davis, who has had an up and down time, but what he first inherited was experience within the NCAA tournament.
All right, so we'll see what any of these teams are going to do. Are you a bracket filler or outer?
Yes.
All of like multiple, or you just
I'm
get
like
the one?
I used to be 3, like a head, a heart, and a deep research.
Okay.
But now I'm really challenging myself to have 1.
You're a junkie, man.
How many do you? I am.
You're a junkie.
This is my favorite time of year. Like when I think back on, and this is why I say, from the local news side of things, like this time of year in particular, you work so hard. Like you are embedded in basketball. I mean, I remember coming from doing the high school state tournaments that are different weekends, coming out of the playoffs leading to the state tournament, and then going into the Memphis Tigers run and whatever SEC teams around this area. Like you're just working and keeping track of it all. But I live for it. Yeah. Like this is truly my favorite time of year, and this is one of the greatest weeks that we have.